Hello, everyone, and welcome to Slash Film Daily for Wednesday, April 7th, 2021. On today's episode, we're going to discuss what we've been up to at the water cooler. This is Slash Film Editor-in-Chief Peter Sciretta. And joining me on today's podcast is Slash Film Managing Editor Jacob Hall.
Hello, hello.
Writer Hoai-Tran.
Hey, everyone.
And Chris Evangelista.
Hello.
And Brad is not here this week, but he'll be back next week. Or actually, he'll be back on this podcast later this week. So, yeah, you can look forward to that. None of us have been doing anything exciting this week, so we're going to move on to what we've been reading. Jacob, what have you been reading?
I read The View from the Bridge by Nicholas Meyer, who is best known for directing Star Trek II and Star Trek VI, but this is his overall memoir of his time in Hollywood, which covers not only the Star Trek movies, but also him making the infamous TV movie The Day After, the time travel, rom-com adventure Time After Time, the books he wrote, the screenplays he wrote. And it's a really interesting read because even though the cover of the book really sells this as being a Star Trek book, Meyer himself was never really into Star Trek. He's actually pretty dismissive of it early in the book. And it turns out that he's kind of the right guy to save it because Star Trek was struggling after the first movie. And he came in, made a bunch of big sweeping changes, and made an absolute classic that Trek fans absolutely love. So, but you don't need to be a Star Trek fan to appreciate this book. It's just lots of good Hollywood stories of him, brushing elbows and butting heads, and sometimes coming off like a real jerk, a jerk who made Star Trek 2, so I can't be too mad at him. It does peter out because he wrote it in 2009, and as before, he didn't quite have a comeback, but he got more work in the last decade, including being a consultant on Star Trek Discovery. And the book ends with very much him going, "Oh, Hollywood these days, all special effects, grumpus old man stuff," and so the last, 30 pages or so, not great, as it just becomes him railing against Hollywood and how he's not working anymore. But up to that point, extremely entertaining, extremely interesting, pulls no punches, goes into a lot of detail about nitty-gritty things, and it made it for a really interesting double header with Leonard Nimoy's I Am Spock, because there are things that Leonard Nimoy brushes over or, doesn't talk about that Nicholas Meyer absolutely does, and they have conflicting stories about making a Star Trek 2 and 6. I thought was very interesting. But like I said, you don't need to know Star Trek to appreciate The View from the Bridge. You just gotta really appreciate this old school, brutally honest New Yorker telling Los Angeles stories. So that's The View from the Bridge. I highly recommend it.
And I think you were the first of us, Jacob. Well, actually, we're moving into the what we've been watching section, and I think you were the first one of us that. Well, actually, no, I saw Tenet in the theater, but I rented it out, like singularly. Did Brad see something in the theater?
Yeah, I think Brad also saw Tenet with a rental.
Yeah, we did one of those, like, a small group of people rentals, but you were the first person in this group that actually went to like bought a ticket and went to like a normal theater with normal people that you didn't know.
You weren't here for the episode where we're talking about Nobody, which I also saw in theaters. So this is my second return to theaters, Peter. But I talked about the experience.
Oh, that's funny. I've actually listened to that episode and I completely forgot about that.
No worries. But yeah, as I talked about before, I think that my local theaters are doing a good job of making you feel safe, and as a fully vaccinated person, as a member of the new elite, looking down, I'm joking, but as a person who's fully vaccinated, I do feel safe returning to theaters. And Godzilla vs. Kong is a movie made for theaters. I'm glad I saw it, big and loud, because that movie's big, loud, and dumb, and I really enjoyed it. I think Adam Wingard very rightfully pivots from Godzilla King of the Monsters, a movie I do not like at all. And while I miss the sort of horror-tinged real-world realism of the first Godzilla movie that Gareth Edwards made, if you are going to have heroic Godzilla, fighting heroic King Kong, because let's face it, they're both the heroes of this movie. There's no villain here. It really is a case of embrace the ridiculous of it. Have spaceships, have Hollow Earth theories, have wild technology, cut the human stuff down to the bone, and keep it as silly as possible. Godzilla vs. Kong is absolutely ridiculous, and it's really hard for me to be mad at a movie that's having this much fun. That feels like it is drawing a page from like 60s Japanese Godzilla as opposed to anything more modern. I had a blast with every silly second of this movie. Although I do think that Kong, Adam Wingard, clearly a Kong fan, more so than a Godzilla fan, I think. But Peter, you saw us at home. How did you feel about this?
Well, I wish I saw this in theaters, but I am not at the point where I've gotten my second shot yet, so I don't feel comfortable going into the theater yet. But yeah, this is, I don't know, it might be that like we haven't seen a big movie on this scale since this pandemic hit, but I was just like having so much fun watching this movie, and I know it has flaws. I know that the human characters are dumb. I get it. It's not like the perfect movie, but I was just having so much fun with how, as you said, how ridiculous it gets and how silly and stupid, but like, I don't know, I was just on board for all of it. Like, they like you said, Godzilla like treats it very grounded. Like if a monster came out of the water and it just started destroying things and stuff like that. But this like, ramps it up to like, if Godzilla was like a 6 out of 10 in ridiculousness, this ramps it up to like 50. There's like spaceships, there's a hollow earth, there's concepts here that feel almost like they were some of the stuff that Guillermo del Toro wanted to do with his Pacific Rim universe they never got to do. It just seems like so crazy and insane. And yes, the human characters are dumb, but at least I didn't hate watching them as much as I did in that last movie. I really hated that last movie, Godzilla King of Monsters. It was, I think, the only one of this series that like I actively disliked. Godzilla is not a great movie, but I really enjoyed it. And Skull Island is just, it's kind of like this. It's just fun. It's stupid, but fun. I think the characters in that I probably disliked a little bit more than the characters in this. But I don't know. I just had so much fun with this. I wish we could have spent more time on some of the ideas like Hollow Earth and I don't know. I highly recommend seeing this. Coming off of Zack Snyder's Justice League, which I also saw on HBO Max, which was, this long 4-hour drawn out, just dark and grim and nothing like fun or insane. Like, I mean, the craziest things about it I hated. This just felt like such a fresh breath of air, and I don't know. I just
Under
enjoyed
2 hours, Peter. Under 2 hours.
Yeah. And I don't want to sound like that guy that complains about running times, because some of my favorite movies are like 3-4 hours long. But I don't know, I feel like you need to earn that. You really need to earn it.
Yeah, it's not about length, it's about pace. It's about how does the movie move. And not to dump on Zack Snyder's Justice League, 'cause people get mad at us, but that thing's an assembly cut. It doesn't move. Godzilla
Yeah.
vs. Kong, 113 minutes, and it moves. I mean, it never slows down. It has the right pace for its material, and I think that's great.
Yeah.
But Jacob, isn't it that movies under 2.5 hours aren't real movies?
Is that something people say? HG?
Oh yeah, there was a thing on Twitter recently that went.
No.
Sorry to keep
No.
pulling Twitter into it.
It was because the new Mortal Kombat movie is under 2 hours, and some guy was like, "This is a travesty. There are too many characters for this movie to be this short." And everyone was like, "There are so many great movies that are under 2 hours." And this person's response was like, "That was in the old days. This is like modern film." And it was just like this. And this person was like being serious. They weren't like kidding. They firmly believe that in order to have a good movie, it has to be like it has to be like, I think they said like 2.5 hours. is
Yeah,
what
2.5
the new-
hours. Anything under 2.5 hours is a kids movie, a Netflix movie, or a rom-com.
Yes, that's what
What-
they said. And
I missed this completely.
this was on Sunday when none of us should be on Twitter. We should all just shut Twitter down, have like a mimosa, and not worry about this idiot who's saying this stuff.
Look, what this ruined my day.
I'm sorry.
Well, two things here. I've been like kind of off Twitter. I go on Twitter to promote things that I'm trying to promote, and I rarely actually open the Twitter app these days. I don't have it open on my computer, and I feel that I'm a happier person. I'm like one of the earliest adopters of Twitter. I love Twitter, but I feel like I'm so happy not seeing it sometimes comes into my view, because you guys will mention in the Slack, like you guys mentioned some kind of bracket, some podcast bracketing or something that people were upset of, and I was like, I don't know, I'm so glad I'm not part of this.
It's
right
a
now.
terrible place. I wish I could leave it. I mean, I primarily stay on it for work, to like keep track of news and to promote stuff, but it makes me want to die. It's a
Yes.
terrible place.
You've made a very good decision, Peter.
Yeah.
My advice is do what I did. I deleted the app from my phone. I blocked it on my mobile browser. I can only access Twitter when I have my computer open during work hours. When I close on the weekends, I close in the evenings. I cannot even see Twitter, and it's made my life so much better.
Yeah, I'll also say that I use Feedly for like news, so I feel like a lot of people rely on Twitter to find out what the latest, especially the people working like we do. but I have Feedly, so like the stuff shows up in there, so it makes me not have to open Twitter to find out this stuff. But I do, not to drag this out any further, but I do this conversation about how long a movie should be to be considered a movie. I don't agree with this thesis that has been explained. But recently I saw, well, not recently, I think it was like probably 6 months ago, there was a movie on Netflix. It was a documentary about cube solvers. Maybe it was that one. I don't know, but it was like an hour long.
Yeah,
And it was
it's like 55 minutes. It's really good.
Yeah, it's really good, but at the end of it, I don't know, I kind of felt like this guy, where I was like, as much as I liked it, and I raved about it on this podcast, I felt like it was like not a full movie. Like, like at what point do you guys think like a movie is like a feature length movie? Because I don't feel like that was a feature length.
I think like it's like 60 some minutes is like the technical requirement. But
Yeah,
the
Academy is 60, but
I always defer to the great Roger Ebert quote, which is, quote, "No good movie is too long and no bad movie is short enough." That's my opinion. And I feel like that is the best explanation, because there are movies that are like 4 hours long that I will watch over and over again, and I will never get bored with them. And then there are movies that are like 89 minutes long, and I'll be sitting there and be like, when the fuck is this going to end? So it really, to me, it's a term of how good or bad the movie is.
Well, I'm not even asking about like good or bad. Like I'm sure there's some horror films that you've watched that you like, Chris, that are like under 90 minutes, right?
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
Like, do you consider those feature length films?
Absolutely. Honestly, anything that's an hour if I had to get technical, I feel like an hour. Maybe just, all right, let's say 62 minutes. Let's round up, because a TV show can be an hour. So let's round it up to 62 minutes right there.
Does anybody else on this podcast have any strong opinions on what makes a feature length running time?
I think Chris is technically right. However, I would argue that anything above 50 minutes, if that's the right length for it, I think it also qualify. I think that Cube movie is the exact length it needs to be. I don't need to know any more about that subject. I feel completely informed, so I can file it away as a full finished movie. A movie is as long as it needs to be. But yes, I think Chris summed up my feelings otherwise.
Okay, then I guess we can move on.
Do we have to? We can spend the whole podcast talking about running time. What's your favorite running time? I think mine's 92 minutes. It's just in and out, you know. It's less than an hour and a half with credits. Like, what's your favorite running time? No, we don't have to. We don't have to do this.
I would say that honestly, my favorite running time is probably like an hour and 45 minutes. I like 90 minutes feels too short to me. And
that sounds insane, you saying that to me, Peter. 90 minutes is too short. I don't know how we're going down this path, but 90 minutes is fine. 89 minutes. Whew, sign me up.
But here's the difference, Chris. You watch how many movies a year?
2.
No. I think you keep track. And I think you watch like over 300 movies a year.
Probably like at least 300, probably like 400 to 500, something like that.
I think I watch like 100 movies a year. Like that's like 2 movies a week, which I think it's a lot more than the average, like, non-film geek. And I think that means that I watch a lot less crap because I'm more picky about what I actually choose to watch, which I know, judging by what I've watched and you've heard on this podcast, people would debate that. Fine, fair enough. But I am self-selecting stuff that I think I'm going to like more than I think someone that would, like Chris, that would watch 400 or 500 movies a year. So I don't know. I think there's a difference in running time there, because I'm sure you watch a lot more crap. So 90 minutes is better for you.
How dare you, Peter?
No?
Everything I watch is a masterpiece. I don't watch crap.
Okay. Let's move on. Let's what have I been watching on Disney Plus? They added on last week. They added this whole Star Wars vintage section, which has the Ewok animated series. It has the Tartakovsky Clone Wars animated shorts. It has the animated Boba Fett debut that was from the holiday special. They don't have the holiday special. I don't know why they don't have the whole holiday special. Maybe it's a rights thing. Maybe they're so embarrassed by it. I don't know. But they also have the 2 Ewok movies, which I have not seen since I'm a kid. It was a kid. I will admit, in my bedroom, I have a 10-foot French poster of the Ewok movie because I love the art so much. It's well, first of all, I got it for Kit. It's not mine. It's Kitra's, because I got it for her at one point because she loves Ewoks, and it's beautifully illustrated by Drew Struzan. And because this film internationally came out in theaters, but domestically was released on home video, I think, or TV, something, one of those two. But I have not seen it since I was a little kid, and I remember liking it as a little kid. And so we put this on, and this is presented in 4:3 aspect ratio. So they Snyder Vision is what I call it. And
Please
uh,
don't.
no, I know, I know, I know, I
I
know.
was waiting for someone to call Peter on that terrible joke.
Hey, I was trying for someone to call me on it. I will say this about the Ewok movies, or at least this Ewok movie. This one was made in like 1984, so that's what, after Return of the Jedi, I think, or right around there. It's amazing that they have all the artistry from ILM working on this. Like, there's incredible matte paintings, there's incredible visual effects being done. They have the costumes of like the Ewok costumes. They have spacecrafts that were designed for the big Star Wars movies in it. They are shooting in Northern California in the redwood forest to recreate like Endor, and they have the basis of this is the mythic storytelling of what, like, Joseph Campbell and the stuff that inspired George Lucas with the Star Wars trilogy. And you have Joe Johnston doing the production design. Like, he's the guy that was responsible for, Boba Fett and a lot of the great designs of the original trilogy. And you have all these great people. You even have actors that were from the original Star Wars movies in this. And somehow this movie is such a mess of a movie. And I don't know, I really don't know why it's so bad. I mean, I guess the story is bad. Like, I guess maybe even as a concept, it's hard to do a story about, you're focusing on these creatures that can't speak English and you're not subtitling them. And, it's about these two kids that are trying to try to find, they crash landed on this planet, the forest moon of Endor, which, if you want to get geeky, everybody calls it Endor, but it's actually not Endor. It's the forest moon of Endor. So it's the moon of Endor. But anyways, they are trying to find their mom and dad, they have been captured by a gigantic creature that is done in this force perspective way. I don't know. I'm glad I revisited this movie. Some of the practical effects are very bad. Some of the matte paintings are gorgeous. I'm just so amazed that, coming off the original trilogy, that something so connected, that had so many of the resources. I mean, I guess you can clearly see it didn't have the budget of those films, but that it could be so bad. But has anybody here revisited this movie since childhood at all?
I don't want to say I revisited it, but I just want to add that I don't remember which one it was because there are two of them, but one of the Ewok movies was the first Star Wars thing I ever saw. Like, I saw that
Wow.
before I saw A New Hope, or Star Wars as I call it. And yeah, that's I can't tell you a single thing about it. I just remember I think it was like one of my aunts or one of my uncles had it on VHS, and I was staying at their house for the day, and I watched that. And I honestly don't remember. I just remember Wilford Brimley is in one of them, and that's all I can tell you. But yeah, I saw that before I saw Star Wars, and I've always been chasing that high of the Ewok movies. No.
Do you remember liking it as a kid?
I don't remember. I'm sure I did because kids like everything. I'm sure I was like, this is the best thing I ever saw. And then I ate my boogers or something stupid like that.
I will say this, that I remember enjoying this as a kid. I had seen it a few times as a kid, and I was expecting to go back to this and be like, oh, it's not as bad as everybody says it is. But it's as bad as everybody says it is. So you too can now watch Caravan of Courage and Ewok Adventure on Disney Plus. And what else have I been watching? I fell down a hole on YouTube. We ran out of stuff to watch. In our subscriptions on YouTube, and a video from Mr. Beast was recommended to us. And I'll be honest with you, Mr. Beast, for those of you who don't know, Mr. Beast, I think, might be the one of the biggest YouTubers on the platform. He has the most subscribers, or one of the most subscribers. He has, let me look this up. He has 60 million subscribers. His videos typically get like 50 to 100 million views each. So to give you perspective, his stuff he produces gets more watched than the biggest stuff on television. So, that said, I have even being sucked into YouTube as a platform, I've avoided Mr. Beast. I don't know why. I had like this impression of who he might be, and he's one of those big annoying YouTubers. And I'm not gonna say I was wrong about that. He is one of those kind of like younger, gamer YouTubers who kind of like, loud and with his friends doing stuff. That said, I fell down this hole of Mr. Beast videos, and I think I enjoy them for the most part because, well, the one that I watched first was this one where he had a credit card, and he goes up to people in stores. So he goes up to people in like a Target, and he's like, I have this credit card here. I'm going to give it to you. You can buy whatever you want with this credit card, but there's a limit. So if we go to check out and it hits that limit, you do not get everything. But if it doesn't, everything is yours for free. So that's the premise. But the actual conceit of it is that there is no limit on the credit card. That these people could buy $1 million worth of stuff and walk out of the store with it. There's no limit for this credit card, but they don't know that. So they have to so they're collecting these things. Like there's, people in like one of those, hype beast sneaker stores. There's a woman in a jewelry store, and they're like, they're trying to buy what they want, but not buy. They don't want to be too greedy because they don't want to go over this non-existent limit. So I don't know. I'm really enjoying his videos. He has, I think he's found this niche for himself where it all seems to revolve around money and giving money to people, because he has so many people watching his videos and he has these sponsors that he's able to generate so much money that and he puts it back into the videos. So there's this one video where he, for a day, Ubered people, and he would pick them up in a car and, Uber them. And by the end of the car ride, give them the car. And it's all captured on tape with hidden cameras. And, trying to think what other videos. He opened up a free car dealership where he gave away cars to, people in need. He had one where he presented people with this option of, will you take $100,000 in cash or this mystery key to something you don't know what it is? And they would have to choose. And sometimes the mystery key would be to like a Lamborghini, which, is more than $100,000 in cash. Or sometimes it would be like a new home. So I don't know. I feel like this is like a new wave. Like this is what I guess game shows are in in this world now. I don't know. I kind of like it when he does these things for. He's not just giving money to his family and friends. He's doing it like, he gave a homeless man a home in one of them, like a full house. He goes up to people, like one video was him in McDonald's going up to people in McDonald's, working at McDonald's, offering them $100,000 to quit their job. So I don't know. Is it great entertainment? I don't know. I'm not like, but I do like that it has such a positive spin to it. He's always kind of giving back to these people, even if he does, there is some, I guess, entertainment at their expense. It's not just to be a good person, but at the same time, he wouldn't have this money to give them if it wasn't for this platform and this thing. I'm wondering, has anybody else here ever watched Mr. Beast on YouTube?
I prefer my YouTube super niche. It's stuff that nobody watches, Peter.
I've never even heard of this. It sounds like you're making it up.
Yeah, I've
also,
never heard of
is
this
this
guy.
is this person like a billionaire? How can he afford like all this stuff? I don't understand.
Well, again, like if he has a video that makes 100 million
I guess
views,
yeah, that's true.
I don't know let's say that's $10 for every 1,000. So that's
I guess what I'm saying is, Mr. Beast, if you want to offer me $10,000, I'll take it.
yeah. But there's videos where he gives $1 million away in a video.
All
on
right, I
YouTube.
take it back. I'll take the $1 million instead. Mr.
Yeah.
Beast, hit me up on twitter.com.
Yeah, I think there was one where there was $1 million in cash, like a pile of $1 million in cash, and he had I don't know how many people to put their hand on the $1 million in cash, and the last person to remove their hand from it gets it. But this goes over the course of many days. You know, they have to go to the bathroom. They can't leave the. I don't know. It's. I don't know if compelling is the word, but I've kind of falling down the hole of watching this, and I don't quite feel bad about it, even though I maybe should. I don't know. But yeah, Mr. Beast. I feel like a lot of people are listening to this.
So are you
and they're
saying like
Peter,
the charitable things that he does cancels out the more troubling social experiment aspects of it?
yeah. Well,
Or
you know what
evens
the
out?
thing is? Like, he isn't one of those like guys that's a jackass on YouTube where, okay, give you an example. There was one video where he went around a college campus with a ghost pepper, and he told people they would give him $10,000 to eat the ghost pepper. Now, the conceit of that was that the pepper actually wasn't a ghost pepper. It was just like normal pepper that wasn't spicy. So you see these people struggling on if they should do it for the $10,000. So, like, I feel like it's never like, you know, do this thing for. Well, I guess putting your hand on the on the $1 million, that might be a struggle after a few days. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know, HD. I'm not sure what I'm saying, but I feel like he's doing more good than bad in this world. And having little kids, which I'm sure is mostly his audience is little kids, watching this guy who I'm sure they want to be, you know, YouTube famous, and the show is mainly about him giving money back to people who need it. I think that's a good thing. I think maybe. I don't know, Jacob. What do you think? I feel like you're the guy that should rule on this, even though you only know the information I've given you here.
If I must say something, I think charity is an excuse for exploitation is a Snyder Cut move, and not one that I'm fond of.
Yeah, I can see that. I don't know. It's still very enjoyable to watch these people burst into tears when you see that they're given a chance of, I don't know, changing their life. Anyways, okay, Jacob, what have you been watching?
I watched the first episode of the new season of Creepshow on Shudder, and like the first season, it's very low budget, all practical stuff, pretty much. Just a bunch of, you know, people the horror community likes, you know, got together on a shoestring budget and made horror stories together. And it has a very much cobbled together inside joke feel to it, like season one, where if you're not part of the, you know, the horror club, you may not enjoy it. But I am part of that club, and I enjoyed season one. I enjoyed season two. It's the kind of show where, like the, you know, 1980s George Romero film it's inspired by, it's a bunch of different horror segments. Each episode is 2 25-minute long, you know, horror stories. And the second story in episode one is about a Pittsburgh public access TV station where somebody tries to sell the Necronomicon from Evil Dead on a auction show, reads from it, summons demons, and the station's Bob Ross character must fight the demons from Evil Dead 2. And if that sounds like fun to you, then yes, Creepshow is your kind of show. It is very silly. Like I said, if you're not already if you're already a dyed-in-the-wool horror fan who understands the appeal of a Ted Raimi cameo, this is not for you. But if you know who Ted Raimi is, then yes, you will probably enjoy watching Creepshow season 2. Chris, I know you were really mixed in season 1. Have you checked this one out yet?
I don't think I'm gonna watch it based on what you're saying. I love horror. I'm part of that horror club you're talking about. I know who Ted Raimi is, but the first season was just painfully low budget for me. And I'm not saying Creepshow needs to have a huge budget, but like I've seen like student movies where people shoot things in their garage that look better than this show, and it just feels like a huge wasted opportunity to me, because the idea is great. The idea of turning Creepshow into a TV show and rounding up all these horror creators to do it, that pushes all my buttons. I want to like that, but it was so cheap looking, and it was like poorly directed. Like it just felt like no one knew what the fuck they were doing, and it kind of like broke my heart. And based on what you're saying, it sounds like season 2 is not an improvement. So I don't know if I'll even get around to watching it. I want to like it, but
if season 1 broke your heart, Chris, and season 2 is not going to mend it.
Yeah, I like everyone involved with this. I love the idea. I just wish they would end up somewhere else where someone gave them like a better budget or hired someone who kind of knew what they were doing to run the show, because it just really doesn't feel like anyone knows what they're doing with this, and it upsets me. I want to like this and I can't.
I will be the opposite end and say I really enjoy how homemade it feels. I think they turn it into an aesthetic. But Chris is not incorrect. He's not the only person to think this. But I do think if you have Shudder, you should at least check out some Creepshow and see if it's for you, because I do enjoy it. Otherwise, I finished Hulu's Sasquatch, which arrives later this month. I talked about the first episode a few weeks ago, and it's Sixth Landing. Really great true crime doc. I interviewed the director today, which you should look for on slashfilm.com in the weeks ahead. I also watched the first episode of HBO Sports' Tiger series, which is a 2-part documentary chronicling the rise and fall and rise again of Tiger Woods. And as somebody who knew the basics, this was a really interesting watch. At least the first half was. I'm sure it'll stick the landing based on the first half. And, some real insight into a real broken guy. A guy who is famous and as powerful, as talented as he was, just was fundamentally busted in a few key ways. And it's the best kind of sports story, which is where one wants to understand the psychology of perfection. And what does it take to make yourself the best in the world at anything? And the answer often is you got to break yourself and become something more than human and less than human. And Tiger, I think, does a really interesting job of diving into that with those really stellar HBO, quality production values. So yeah, both episodes of that are streaming on, the HBO platform of your choice. And I'll be checking out part 2, probably the rest tonight or tomorrow, probably.
Okay. Chris, what have you been watching?
I watched Unhinged, which is the Russell Crowe movie that kind of became infamous because it was one of the first movies to open wide again over the summer after stuff had shut down because of COVID. And of course, as we all know now, that was a very premature opening. It's on Amazon Prime right now. And I've mentioned this before, but I try to watch junk when I'm on the elliptical machine. So I thought this will be a perfect elliptical movie. And I was right, because this is trash. It is not a good movie, but it's worth watching for Russell Crowe, who is going wild here. I feel like we all know Russell Crowe has gained some weight over the years, and I'm not fat shaming him or anything. It's just a fact of the matter. But he also wears a fat suit in this, so he looks even bigger than normal, and he plays a guy going through road rage basically, and this single mom honks her horn at him, and he spends the rest of the movie riding around like murdering her friends and trying to kill her because she upset him. And everyone else in the movie is just bland and just average. They're giving, direct to video performances, but he's having the time of his life, and he's just over the top, and he's just constantly sweaty. And at some points he's doing like a Southern accent, and some points he's not. And it's like I said, like none of this is good, but it's worth watching just to see Russell Crowe have the time of his life as this sweaty, overweight, crazy person. I also think the movie is like kind of like morally reprehensible, because it kind of makes it seem like it's rooting for Russell Crowe. Like it kind of makes it feel like the mom character is in the wrong for even daring to honk her horn at Russell Crowe, and that like did not sit well with me. But if you can get past that, and if you just want to watch Russell Crowe drive around slamming his car into people and stabbing people and stuff like that. He set someone on fire at one point. This is the film for you. Opposite end of the spectrum, I watched Mare of Easttown, which is it's an upcoming HBO series with Kate Winslet.
It's your favorite title of all time, Chris.
Oh boy, this title. I reviewed the show, and the review is on slashfilm.com, and I gave it a really good review because it's a really good show, but the title sucks. I really wish they'd come up with a better title. But if you can get past that title, you will find this really interesting murder mystery series, and it's set in this small Pennsylvania community, and it does a really great job of capturing like small town working class vibes. And Hollywood isn't the best at doing that. Sometimes they sort of go too far, they don't go far enough, and they can't really nail down that working class community mentality. And this show does it really well. And it builds up, this entire community basically, and how they're reacting to a murder that happens. And Kate Winslet is the cop investigating it, and in true police procedural fashion, she's kind of a mess, and she has to deal with her own personal problems. And but it's really good, and she's great in it. It feels like a cliche at this point to say Kate Winslet is a good actress, but she's phenomenal here. And this might actually be like her best performance ever, honestly. And not only that, but she really nails down that Philly PA accent where people say wooder for water and stuff like that. And that can sound a little, bad when it's done poorly, but she makes it sound like, it's her natural accent, even though it's not. And that's pretty impressive. And then I finally started watching Ted Lasso, which everyone has been talking about. And I don't have much more to add. I'll just say that it really is a charming show. I don't think it's as funny as some people have made it out to be. Like, I don't find it as laugh out loud funny as some people were kind of making it sound to me, but it's a very sweet, endearing, nice show. It's part of that nice core subgenre where people are doing nice things for the sake of being nice. And as hokey as that might seem to some people, it's nice to watch that. It's nice to watch a show about nice people doing nice things. And so I think I'm like 5 episodes in, and I'm enjoying what I've seen so far.
Well, very cool. And you can watch that on Apple TV Plus, right?
Yeah, Apple TV Plus.
Yes. Ben, what have you been watching?
So I DVR'd a movie called Easter Parade that was playing on Turner Classic Movies in the lead up to Easter, and actually watched this I think it was like the Saturday night before Easter Sunday. And this movie came out in 1948. It was directed by Charles Walters, who went on to direct High Society, which is a movie that I've talked about on the podcast before. And one of the writers on this movie was Sidney Sheldon, who is another writer that I've mentioned before. He wrote The Bachelor and the Bobby Soxer, and went on to become a very, very famous best-selling novelist. Easter Parade is about a nightclub performer who's played by Fred Astaire, who hires a naive chorus girl, who is played by Judy Garland, to become his new dance partner, to make his old dance partner jealous, and to prove that he can make any partner a star. So it's basically the old She's All That kind of scenario. And this movie has music by Irving Berlin, who is one of the people behind White Christmas, which is an annual favorite in my house, or it was growing up anyway. And the music in this movie is very disappointing. I actually like most of the songs in White Christmas. The music in Easter Parade is not very good, but it is, I would say, pleasurable, enjoyable, entertaining, all of the above, to watch Fred Astaire and Judy Garland perform on screen together. I don't think they were in very many movies together at all. Maybe this might actually be the only one. But they are both just very like winning personalities, and the characters they play work well together. And just watching them dance in these really long, unbroken, complex shots. It's the same feeling you get from any Fred Astaire, like Ginger Rogers movie, any of that old, that old Hollywood golden age stuff of just like, man, these people, they really don't make movies like this anymore, because these people are actually doing all this stuff in these long takes, and they're not hiding any of it with editing and all of that. So Ann Miller's in this too, and she's pretty good. So it's just a pleasant little movie. It's not, I was like, Irving Berlin, oh wow, this ought to be like, the music in this might be really memorable, and to me it's only memorable for being disappointing, so that's kind of a bummer. But Easter Parade is available to rent on all the usual suspects if you want to check that out. It's like $3 to rent it or something. What else? Oh, I also watched the first 2 episodes of this new HBO show called Exterminate All the Brutes. And this premieres on HBO tonight, and it's a 4-part series. And Raoul Peck is the filmmaker here. He's the writer-director. He's the guy who directed I Am Not Your Negro a few years ago. And this show is really interesting. It is a hybrid docuseries. And I'm going to read from the official website here. It provides a visually arresting journey through time into the darkest hours of humanity. And then there's another part that says that it revisits and reframes the profound meaning of the Native American genocide and American slavery and their fundamental implications for our present. So it's basically a show about how white supremacy came to be, and how whiteness became sort of like the default setting for so much of culture, not only American culture but all across the world. And it's a little the entire experience kind of reminded me of taking a really great college class from a super interesting professor that, you know, the type of classes where, I don't know if you guys ever had this in school, where you would go into a class and just be, I don't know, like not expecting much from it, but the professor is so compelling and just like such a dynamic personality that you're like, oh wow, this, and presenting information to you that you had never really thought about in those terms before, that the entire class just feels like, you know, it was one of those things that you just actually couldn't wait to go to every week, instead of sort of dreading it like I did for a lot of other classes. So yeah, it's a little dry, the show. His narration, Raoul Peck like inserts himself into the narrative, and he wrote and directed this whole thing and narrates the entire thing. So it's a lot of his voice. And some of it is a little dry, but I just find it to be so compelling, the way that he sort of weaves together documentary footage and then like new stuff that he shot, where Josh Hartnett plays sort of a main character of this like flashback series of sort of side stories that are like fictionalizing parts of the of history that he's talking about, and he just blends all this together into what seems like, yeah, just a really, really smart and well articulated breakdown of how white supremacy has become the sort of scourge that it is right now. So it's called Exterminate All the Brutes, and it premieres tonight on HBO.
Cool. HT, what have you been watching?
I watched Little Shop of Horrors for the first time. This came about because my roommate and I were just kind of browsing and wanting to, in the mood to watch a musical. And I had never seen Little Shop of Horrors before. I had actually only ever thought of it in terms of Alan Menken and Howard Ashman's pre-Disney careers, like where they got their starts. I knew it was a beloved like, cult classic musical, and I just never got around to it. And I always thought it was really funny that this is where Disney legends like Howard Ashman and Alan Menken, who composed for Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, all the other like Disney Renaissance classics, got started on this like weird, offbeat, off-Broadway musical about a carnivorous man-eating plant. So I was kind of curious about like how that came to be, and like what this show that like is basically what earned them Disney's attention could have been. And yeah, I knew very little about it other than the song Suddenly Seymour and Rick Moranis and Ellen Greene starring in it. And yeah, it's great. It's a little delight. It's actually surprisingly sweet considering it's a musical about a man-eating plant. I know that it's based off of a 1960 B movie that actually had a young Jack Nicholson in it, and this one is just so campy and fun, and has that B movie horror charm to it, as well as just a bunch of SNL alums just popping up. I was surprised by how many were there. Like Bill Murray shows up. Steve Martin plays a really major role as the like sadistic dentist, and yeah, it's a lot of fun. And I was really taken aback actually by how talented of a singer Rick Moranis is. I kind of expected that he could sing, but I think that I expected him to be like an actor who can sing but not like have the pipes that he has, and he's great in this movie. He's really like got those powerhouse vocals. I was really surprised. So yeah, Little Shop of Horrors, I really enjoyed it. Does anyone else have an affection for this movie, or has anyone seen it?
Yes, it's so good. I love it. It's charming and funny. I have nothing to add. I just like it a lot.
Yeah, Frank Oz directs. The puppet for Audrey 2 is really amazing and very, I want to say lifelike, but very, very convincing and a lot of fun. Just a lot of fun B-movie, campy horror movie. So the thing I've been watching recently, I wrote about this, actually wrote about both of these things in my quarantine stream. But Ellen Green, who stars in Little Shop of Horrors, also stars in this series. And my roommate and I were just talking about whether Ellen Green's voice is real or not, because she gives this like sort of baby voiced, breathy affectation in Little Shop of Horrors, and then when she sings, she has this very deep, throaty voice, and we're like, is it real? And we just started talking about her and how she gives that same performance in Pushing Daisies. So we decided to just pop on Pushing Daisies, and I've been revisiting it lately. And yeah, her voice, the breathy voice, is not real; it's an affectation. But Pushing Daisies, as always, is just great. I adore this show. It's the Brian Fuller series that was canceled too soon and only had 2 seasons. Stars Lee Pace, Anna Friel. Lee Pace as the pie maker who can bring back the dead with a touch, and Anna Friel as his childhood sweetheart who dies and he brings back but can't touch again because she will die forever. Yeah, I absolutely adore this like almost sickeningly sweet, candy-colored aesthetic of it, with that same degree of almost like camp, morbid camp to it as well. Just really whimsical, really sweet. It's like going back to a beloved show that I haven't watched in a long time. So, Pushing Daisies, both of them, both Pushing Daisies and Little Shop of Horrors, are streaming on HBO Max.
Yeah, both of them are wonderful. Pushing Daisies, I think, is a show that not many people have discovered, and I feel like, where can you watch? You just said on HBO Max.
Yes, they're both on HBO
Yeah.
Max. I highly recommend Pushing Daisies. It's my favorite Brian
Yeah.
Fuller thing, apart from Hannibal. Actually, both of them are like top tier TV shows, honestly. So I recommend you watch anything Brian Fuller, especially Pushing Daisies, because a lot of you probably haven't been able to discover it yet, like you said, Peter.
Yeah, I think I might like it more than Hannibal. Hot take. But okay, let's move on to what we've been eating. Apparently, I was the only one that ate any food this week because Brad isn't here. On Easter Sunday, I went to Outback Steakhouse for reasons. We had to go to the shopping center that was further away from our house, and there was an Outback there, and we were like, oh, it's Easter. We should eat something bad. So we went to Outback because the Bloomin' Onion, is that what they call it there? Or is it the Awesome Blossom? I think it's the Bloomin' Onion. Different places call it different things. But the thing I wanted to point out to people out there is I ordered this thing called the Boom Marita, which I just thought like it listed off like a bunch of different margarita flavors, and I was like, yeah, I'll order at the Boom Marita because I want a margarita. And there was like a watermelon there, and she didn't ask me which one I wanted, so she like went away. The server went away, and I was like, she didn't ask me which one I wanted. Oh, that's fine. Any one of these is good. And she comes back, and apparently I didn't order myself a margarita. I ordered myself a margarita flight. It's a margarita flight that's on this wooden boomerang because, Outback Steakhouse. And it's like a raspberry margarita, a mango margarita, a watermelon margarita, and a regular margarita. And I mean, they're small portions, but as people are going or starting to go back to restaurants and stuff, if you're looking for a fun drink to have at a chain restaurant, I'd recommend the Boomerita at Outback Steakhouse. And I'd also recommend not eating too much of that onion because I couldn't finish my food. But that's it. So yeah, I guess that brings us to the end of today's Slash Film Daily. If you want to find more of our work, go to slashfilm.com. This podcast is published every weekday on Apple, Google, Overcast, Spotify, all the popular podcast apps. Please, yes, I'm talking to you. You know who you are. I'm talking to you out there listening. If you haven't already, go to our Apple Podcast page and write us one sentence of why you like this show. Tell the world. Give us 5 stars. That will help more people discover the show. And, that's a good thing. And we would greatly appreciate it. This is a show that's free, and we rarely have advertisements inserted in here. So, it I'm just saying it's the best you could do. So, and, if you have any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, send them to peter@sawsfilm.com. And thanks for listening, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Hey, Peter. Peter.
Yeah. Yes, Jacob.
You weren't here for the last water cooler, right?
And I mean,
well, I opened the gargantuan
I-
providence
I-
defense in
I-
a funnery,
no,
sharper torch for
I-
post, cost equips, implant put down for Louis A. Sapien.
I
And I decided
I
that-
listened to it, so I was kind of there virtually as well.
Yeah, but I've decided that I'm going to do double the insults today because you were gone. I've opened to page 249, the cranks section. Cranks. Peter, the hardest thing you find... no, never mind. That's a bad one. I'm going to skip that one. That's not funny. Kind of funny one.
That one's not funny.
Wait, what?
I need to know what the bar is for these jokes.
I'll go back to that one. Peter, your new glasses have helped your vision without changing your prejudiced point of view.
Wow.
Chris, it should be interesting to know on what you bias is your opinion. Ben, you really should see a psychiatrist about your infuriating complex. HT, her favorite impression is, my mind is already made up, so don't confuse me with the facts.
Ah.
I go back to Peter. Peter gets double this week.
By the way, Jacob, I'm surprised that you actually read the jokes ahead of time. I just assume that you just pick a joke and you just read it on the air.
Oh, I know. I do that. I read it in a second before I read it out loud, and then I realize that sometimes they're not worth the trouble.
Wait, can I interrupt this joke book to tell you something that happened, I think, a week or two ago on our live stream on Ordinary Adventures?
You may after I finish the joke. You're so opinionated. Your wife said to you on Sunday, tomorrow will be Monday, if it's all right with you. All right, now you can tell your story, Peter.
Okay, so I want to hear what you guys think of this. So on the live chat, like, people send in questions, we answer questions, but then some people will spend money and send in a super chat. So that we, like, we'll definitely get to the super chats. We only get to some of the normal chats. And someone sent in the super chat and they're like, Peter and Kitro, love your channel, blah, 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 blah. I don't remember exactly what they said, but then it, and I'm reading this because I don't read it ahead of time. But I guess I should do what you do, Jacob, is what I'm saying. I'm reading it in real time, and the super chat turns to, like, Sarah, I know you're watching this. I just want to say it's over. I'm breaking up with you. Bye. And, like, I didn't know. I mean, like, well, first of all, I didn't know if it was real. Number one. Number two, like, if I had read that ahead of time, this is a person that's spending good money to have us read their question on the air. Is that something I should have read? I felt so bad after reading it.
Return the money and never do that again.
Well, I don't think there's a way to return. There's no process of that, Jacob.
That's weird to me. They should. I feel like that's a ugly thing someone did to you. That's incredibly unfair and wrong what they did to you, put you in that position.
Yeah.
And maybe have from now on have upfront rules about how if the message is cruel or mean spirited, you can pocket the money but not read it. I think that's the best way to go forward.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Okay, you can continue, Jacob.
Oh no, I'm done. I read my insults
Oh.
and I handed the floor to you, as we do in a society.
We do live in a society.
Yeah, we do.